We'd like to call our next speaker. He's a graduate of the University of the Philippines and has been a long-time environmental activist who spent more than a decade with the World Wildlife Fund. He was appointed commissioner of the Climate Change Commission in 2010 and is now the head negotiator of the Philippines in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of the parties every year. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Naderev Saño, Commissioner from the Climate Change Commission. Round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Patricia. And allow me, please, at the onset, to thank the Rappler family for inviting me here. Such a big honor. Maupay nga kulob sa tanan. Gandang hapon, good afternoon. Well, first, let me reflect on why I'm so happy to be here. Kasi pinag-uusapan natin yung napaka-importanting issue ng climate change. And I was so glad to hear the AFP Chief of Staff declare climate change as the enemy of the state. Ang ganda nun, ang ganda nung ganong mindset. Because indeed it is an enemy that we all must recognize. Know your enemy, no? But also, we must know ourselves. And in this particular discussion, kanina narinig natin at pinaliwanag ni Stacy yung hashtag The World I Want. That is basically what I would like to discuss this afternoon, the world I want. And this is how we proceed. Now, no one will ever forget, no? Sino kayang makakalimot ng November 8, 2013? I don't think no one will ever forget, at least for a long time, what happened on November 8, 2013. And 3 days after, Yolanda, I was given the honor to speak on your behalf, to speak on behalf of the Philippines at the United Nations Climate Conference. I will always be known as the guy who cried on TV. But I was there and I appealed to the whole world, especially to world leaders, to respond to climate change and take urgent action dahil napaka-importante nitong laban na ito. Also, during the time that Yolanda hit the Philippines, and Maria, kanina sinabi ni Maria, this is the strongest typhoon ever to make landfall in the history of humanity. So this is off the charts. This is a typhoon that we have never seen before, but more of it will come. When Yolanda hit Tacloban, my own brother was here in this very city, and my brother AG, who's also a Rappler Dumor awardee, survived the storm. He was in downtown Tacloban, and after surviving, he bravely helped recover the bodies of the dead. At wala ho siyang training. I don't think many of us have training on how to recover bodies, but many of you did that. Many people rose to the occasion, and truly I look at my brother as a hero. And I look at many of you as the real heroes of our time, everybody who works tirelessly on the ground to make people's lives better, NGOs, the media, young people, everybody, government, the military, all of you are the heroes of our time. Now, when we talk about heroes, ibig sabihin, we need someone to save us. And we need a lot of saving. Now let me and that means we have some problems. Now let me summarize our problems in 3 words. I like these 3 words because they all start with the letter A. Madaling tandaan. These are avarice, arrogance, and apathy. Ano yung avarice? Avarice is extreme greed. Arrogance is the exaggerated sense of self-importance. And all of these have shown us a kind of development that has been destroying the planet, driving more people into poverty, and destroying the moral fabric of society. And apathy, I will borrow the words of Robert Swan, is the first person to reach the North Pole and the South Pole by foot. And he said, the greatest threat to this planet is the belief that someone else will save it. This is a dangerous belief because it's the job of every one of us, to be part of the solution. It's not just the job of government, it's not just the job of NGOs, It's everybody's job to take care of our planet and to take care of each other. Now, these are all bad things. Although all of these letter A's are bad things, let's talk about something good. And this is the fourth day of the Social Good Summit. I would now assume that everybody understands what a social good means. Sana, no? Because that would be tragic if you don't understand what a social good means. We're talking about stuff that benefits the largest number of people in the best possible way. Now, that sounds like genuine democracy, right? Ang ibig sabihin din ito, a social bad is something that benefits the fewest number of people in the worst possible way. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but let's look at it in that way. And we're very familiar with bad stuff. Now, can you think of what are examples of a social good? There are lots of things, and we need to understand that because not just because we're in a social good summit, but because social good is really good. We're talking about energy security, clean energy, maybe clean air. Is that a social good? If the air is clean and we can breathe it, a lot of people benefit from that. Marami nakikinabang. Quality education, maybe gender equality is a social good. It makes everybody happy. Literacy, you're talking about biodiversity. What else? Rule of law. If there's rule of law, it's a social good. Good policemen, not those who go hold up people at EDSA. If we have good policemen and good enforcement, it's good for everyone. Clean water, of course, if you have clean water. Now, maybe an MRT system that works is a social good, right? Good hospitals. Now, these are all examples of social good. How about saving the Philippine eagle? Is that a social good? It's a symbol, but it's not a symbol, but I'll go to that later. Now, when I think about the question, what is social good? Ang naiisip ko rin yung tanong na, what matters most to you? Sa Tagalog ang tawag dyan saan ka masaya? And we reflect on this every day. I think every morning, you kind of think how you feel about something. Saan ba ako masaya? Masaya ba ako sa piniritong daing o gusto ko ng adobong manok? Diba? Saan ka masaya? And we think about this. Now, just keep this in mind because happiness, especially happiness and well-being of everybody is a social good. Tandaan nyo, happiness. I'm not talking about money here or a big house or a fancy car. I'm talking about real happiness. Okay? Keep that in mind and we'll go back to that. Now, 4 days ago, I just arrived from a trip to the Arctic. Sino na po sa inyong nakapunta sa Arctic? So, a lot of people were asking me, malamig ba? Diyos ko naman, no? It was really cold. But it's the end of the summer, so it's not negative 40. No? But it was cold. That's why I had to wear these dry suits. Just in case you fall accidentally into the water, you will go in shock in 2 minutes. So we were required to wear these dry suits. And it was that cold. Now, the scenery was astonishing. It was among the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. But the Arctic is something that's also disappearing before our very eyes. No? It leads me to feel that there's some sense of sadness when I see this. No? And it's mind-boggling. But also what's mind-boggling about the place I went to is that it had the fastest internet on Earth. Ayaw niyo maniwala? 160 Mbps, faster than any country. This was, yeah. You know why? Because Svalbard is so close to the North Pole that it can see all of the 14 polar orbiting satellites. And the Norwegian Space Center invested tons of money for the fastest internet on Earth because they're uploading data, satellite data, to NASA. So they invested a lot. And so believe it or not, I was downloading a 25 megabyte file. I downloaded it in 5 seconds. Di ako makapaniwala. But it was fantastic. Now, what we see today, what we have today, are tools that make us see the world in a different way, in a very powerful way. We have tools, just like what Maria and many other speakers have already told us. We have a lot of tools at our fingertips, and we can have those tools, and that's where I went to, that's that little circle there. We have the tools to have a clearer, a better understanding of the planet and even of the universe. See, but this particular image also shows us that it's not a very good picture for this part of the world because the ice is melting really fast. Now, when we talk about the Arctic, this is the future. And when we talk about these tools, and when we talk about 160 Mbps of internet, that's the future happening right now, happening today. It's quite amazing. But there's a big but. But we are also seeing a lot of changes that are not so good. And that's the fact. Every natural living system in the world today is in decline. You name it. Rivers, oceans, lakes, forests, coral reefs, mangroves, wildlife, mammals, amphibians, reptiles. Even the top of the world in the Arctic, it's not good. It's really becoming really bad. And just to illustrate that, we lose 13 million hectares of forests every year. 13 million hectares. That's mind-boggling. Why? Because that's even larger than the island of Luzon. Every year, we lose that much forest. Is that good or bad? That's obviously bad. And that's something we need to work on. Now, we've been talking a lot of these bad things. Let's talk about what's happening in our own country. 90% of our fish stocks have been depleted. So that's why it's hard to buy fish. Pumunta kayo sa palengke, ang hirap bumili ng isda na maayos, at kung meron ka makitang maganda na medyo malaki, napakamahal. Diba? And that's an old study, 1996. It's probably worse now. Now, we also know that fish spawn and breed in coral reefs. This is alarming. We have only 1% of our coral reefs in excellent condition. But what's more alarming for me is nobody is alarmed. 1%. No? And these are in very remote areas like Tubataha in Palawan, very remote areas. And forest, only 3% of our, what you call the virgin forest remain. 1 million hectares remain out of the 30 million hectares. Another sad story. And we've been talking about protecting the environment earlier. If we have more forests, it will allow us to be more resilient to storms, to flooding, and all of these disasters. But this is the story for our forests. And look at Cebu City. Cebu City has 1% forest cover. Cebu province, I'm sorry. Now the mangroves as well are disappearing. And the Philippine eagle, supposedly as a proud symbol of our country, and I had the fortune of shooting it with a camera, not with a gun, last May in Mount Apo. But it was a very sad experience for me because I know that I would be one of the last people who will ever see this beautiful creature. Because as few as only 180 remain in the wild. Some of them are on this island, Leyte, and on Samar. A lot of them are in Mindanao, but they are very few. Para mailigtas natin yung Philippine eagle, which is a social good as you agreed, we need to come up with more social good. Why? We need to protect its habitat. We need to alleviate poverty around its habitat and promote sustainable lives all over the country for us to save this national symbol. And I'm not yet even talking about climate change. Now we have climate change, which is the most serious problem that humanity has ever faced. Many people today have already described what kind of problem climate change is, so I wouldn't even elaborate on that, as this is very clear in our minds, and Super Typhoon Yolanda has already explained what climate change means. Now, I'll go back to why I went to the Arctic. I went to the Arctic because everything is connected, and I wanted to understand, gusto kong maunawaan, Bakit ganon? So pagpunta ko sa Arctic, I had an overwhelming sense of foreboding. Yung sabihin, nag-aalala ka, kinakabahan ka. Bakit? Kasi bukod sa malamang tayo yung huling generation na makakita pa ng yelo sa Arctic, it's going to affect the whole world in very profound ways. So it was a very deep sense of foreboding. But the Save the Arctic social good is apparently getting a lot of support. As a social good, saving the Arctic, you have Emma Thompson, who came in 1 week before me, Adam Sandler, and George Clooney. Because he cannot go, I went there. And now I have a shirt that says, Tindog Leyte. No. So it's a social good, and it's good for it to be happening. Now, it was also worrying for me because, and I had also a deep sense of epiphany. Ibig sabihin, feeling ko konektado yung yelo sa Arctic sa Pilipinas. And what's happening there is connected to Tacloban, to Eastern Visayas, to Samar, to Biliran, baka makalimutan, no? It is all connected, and we are all connected. And that means what happens there affects us here, and what happens to the entire world will be a vicious cycle that we will all have to confront. It was for me like connecting the dots. Very big and bold, clear dots of climate change. Yolanda is a big dot, and the melting of the Arctic and the polar bears, they are big dots, and it's as if I was connecting them. And now, the problem and the big question for us is there hope? How do we turn things around? The answer is, yes, there is a way, but how? And now going to the question, the world I want, and what do we see in our future, 2030. And 2030 is not too far, okay? It's not too far. We are at a crucial juncture, and we are at a crossroads. Meron tayong dalawang options. There are two paths before us, just to simplify things. The path of gloom and the path of hope. The path of gloom, this means more super typhoons or more disasters. Maybe more avarice, more greed, more apathy, more arrogance, zero forests remaining. Maybe the Philippine eagle will become extinct on this side. The MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, meaning more babies will die when they're born, more mommies will die when they give birth, and all of these problems and more disasters. And the list will go on. On the path of hope, we will have universal education for elementary pupils all over the Philippines. We have gender equality. We will have reduced risk to disasters. We will save the Philippine eagle. We will have jobs, people bike, people eat safe and fresh food. The MRT works every day. That's their path of hope. And people care for each other. The choice is in our hands. We have these two paths to take. And we can build this dream. Now, as we pursue this dream and pursue that path of hope, it's important for us to embrace positive change. Embrace positive change. Can you tell the person next to you, embrace positive change? Now, I'll tell you a story about positive change. Okay? O, pwede na, okay na. RSI. You know what RSI is? Nakita nyo na eh. It's the fastest growing injury in the workplace all over the world. In the United States alone, they spend more than $20 billion a year for medical bills of workers who are injured because of RSI. Ano yung RSI? That's repetitive strain injury. And this is due largely to something we use every day to stay connected, the keyboard. The problem with the QWERTY keyboard, and I'll go fast on this because I have a time limit. The QWERTY keyboard, my friends, you can find in your smartphones, you can find on your laptops, on your computers. This keyboard was invented in 1866. For what device? For the typewriter. And this was designed so that they would slow down typists, but the real reason for the design of this keyboard is because it was not designed for the user, but for the salespeople. Imagine the salespeople would go out and sell the new invention called the typewriter in the 1860s, and they would demonstrate how to use the device. And I'll tell you, ma'am, sir, di-demo ko po yung paggamit ng typewriter. Itatype ko po yung word na typewriter. And all I needed was the first set of keys on the top row because T, Y, P, E, W, R, T are all in one row. And we still use this keyboard until now, more than 100 years after. And that's why the most prevalent injury in the office is RSI. So a lot of you probably have painful wrists and painful arms. Now, I invite you to try this. Please try this. Imagine you are typing or playing the piano. Do it with the inward motion. Inward. Inward, okay? Remember the feeling, okay? And do it the other way, outward. Anong mas madali? Inward, unanimous, right? But many of the words we type with the QWERTY keyboard are outward. It's very painful to your hands. And using that principle, Dr. Auguste Dvorak invented a different layout, and it's called the Dvorak keyboard. He just changed the arrangement so that it would be friendlier to your hands and to your wrists and to your fingers. The fastest typist on earth, Martha Blackburn, can type 212 words per minute on this keyboard. She can only type 140 on the QWERTY. This is obviously a better keyboard, more efficient, friendlier to your hands. And why did Dvorak invent this keyboard? Wala nyo? To prevent RSI. And when did he invent this keyboard? Not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, not even 50 years ago. He invented this in 1936. Who in this room has ever seen a Dvorak keyboard? Come on. Look at your iPads, look at your laptops, look at your smartphones. The Dvorak layout is there, but nobody uses it. It's there. What's my point? But you can't buy it from the store. You have to disassemble a keyboard and assemble it again. My point here is, we have been so accustomed to old habits, we are afraid to embrace positive change. We probably are so afraid of embracing social good. And that's a problem, because do you want social good? Do you want change in our society? Then we must become courageous and embrace positive change. For us to solve the environmental crisis, we have to do that. And embracing positive change can solve the environmental crisis. It requires us to have a different mindset, thinking out of the box, and we need a lot of that. Now, I ask you a question. Where can you find the biggest geothermal clean energy power plant in the whole world which is under one roof? I think you know the answer. Here on the island of Leyte. Imagine that. The biggest clean energy facility in the world. Now I wonder where the 700 megawatts go. Alam niyo po, karamihan sa 700 megawatts is tinatransmit papuntang Metro Manila to the Luzon grid through cables, especially through a submarine cable that runs from Samar to Sorsogon. These are expensive cables. Unfortunately, the cables can only transmit 500 megawatts. And what do we do with 200? We waste it. It just goes out as steam. Sayang, no? Kasi hindi natin matransmit. What a waste. What if we change things? What if... And the problem with that is because you transmit electricity from here to Metro Manila over thousands of kilometers, you find something funny in your electric bill. It's called systems losses. Now, data, as we have proven every day, is easier and cheaper to transmit. Why don't we bring all of those data-intensive industries to this region? All of those BPOs, every single business that relies on data, bring them here, and that will boost the local economy of this region. We will see this region emerge from impoverished to the new hub of economic growth in the country. just imagining. I'm just imagining as Dr. Salidum said. But transformative change is important. Transformative change is something we want, especially after every disaster we face. But what we need is happiness. Kailangan masaya tayo. But to be happy, we also need to stay connected. So connectivity is very key. Now, I want you to reflect on what Maria has told you about Project Agos. There's one other powerful thing about the gadgets we have. Did you know that your smartphones, well, particularly the new ones, they can measure barometric pressure? Do you know that? They can measure temperature, and they can measure humidity. Every new smartphone can do that. And the power of that is you can actually contribute to experts, to technologists who analyze the data, and you can send them some blurb telling them that it's actually sunny where I am, or the wind is blowing very hard here, or there's a storm right where I am, and they analyze that together with all of the data that your phone sends to us to those servers. And that's powerful because it allows meteorologists to forecast weather more accurately. And that's powerful. And Maria has alluded to this very important crowdsourcing. And I like to emphasize the word crowd. Do you know why I'm so passionate about a lot of things, especially passionate in the belief that we can solve climate change? Because of the crowd. I don't think, sorry to say, I don't think world leaders will solve climate change. Sorry. But the crowd will. Because every clean energy power plant out there, the crowd will fund it. Every person who wants to build a home after a disaster, the crowd will fund it. Every person who wants to build a storm surge shelter, the crowd will fund it. And not just funds, the crowd will express that unequivocally. And in building resilience, I give you 10 words, and I will not elaborate on them. I've been warned that I'm running out of time. The good thing is I'm the last speaker, probably. And 10 words that you must remember. Everything starts with the letter I. Institutions, investments, infrastructure, information, implementation, intelligence, interaction, instruction, inclusion, integration. Big words, but you know what they mean. And these words I did not invent. I learned them from local communities. And the most resilient communities on earth know these 10 things. That is building resilience. And building resilience is important. Naputol ito, pero for us to weather the storm and confront a crisis such as climate change, and as General Katapang said, the worst enemy of the state, we need to build a better nation, eliminate corruption, and fight poverty, take care of the environment, take care of the health of the people, and build a better nation. It's not a choice. It's our only option. Build a better nation. It also means the emergence of leaders who care for the future of this country and who care for the future of this planet and who are ready to promote the social good. We need those leaders. And many of them are in this room right now. The question is, 2030 is not too far from now. It's 15 years away, 16 years. But we do not really have the luxury of 15 years. So why wait until 2030? Let us make 2030 happen right now. That is an imperative. Now, what does it take to make this all happen? And this is my last 2 slides. What does it take to make all of this happen? I call this a planetary awakening, a moral awakening, solidarity among all people on earth, and kinship. We have to set aside our differences and become united in our resolve to change the world for the better. As we sit here, hundreds of thousands of people are converging on New York City, expressing decades of frustration about the inaction, the lack of urgency of governments around the world in solving climate change, especially those who can change the big stuff. The big governments, the big countries of the world refuse to take concrete and urgent action. And hundreds of thousands are expressing their indignation over that And and we must all stand up on the right side of this issue called climate change. And for those who stand up for what is right, we must stand with them. For those who march towards a new dawn of hope, we must march with them. And we must welcome the light, embrace the new hope in our hearts, sing forth with the Spirit, and be courageous. Be courageous. Now, the People's Climate March is a moment that can change the course of history. But more importantly, it's not just a moment, it has become a movement. And we are all part of it because we are part of the human family. And as a movement, it will not end tomorrow during the big march in New York. It will continue in our hearts, and we will all be doing the things we continue to do on the ground. Why is that important? Because it is a battle we cannot afford to lose. Climate change will be won or lost by people at the grassroots. It is a battle we simply cannot afford to lose. And finally, my friends, please tell the person next to you, you are not here by accident. You are not here by accident. We are not here by accident. And, my friends, I'm not talking about the day you were born. I'm talking about today. We are not here by accident to be here at the Social Good Summit, and everybody who is participating in the Social Good Summit must unite to unlock the power of the technology that can change the world for the better. We are all part of the same historic and spiritual journey. We are all part of the same mission, a mission to change the world for the better. So my friends, go forth and change the world. Maraming salamat po, mabuhay po kayong lahat.
Ipatakbo kayo.